All right, the way of mastery, lesson 1. The way that calls you home. By the rules of way of mastery, we're going to stick with what they state. It's the Shanti Crystal Foundation. They have put this out. I will not alter or change anything that is written down here. What I will do is read it, and then I will give my Lexio interpretation, which I think explains it, makes it more accessible. And so here we go. Now we begin. Beloved friends, I come forth to abide with you where you believe yourself to be. I come not for myself, but for you. I come not to teach you, but to love you until you choose from the depth within your own being to set aside every illusion you have ever given credence to, and to remember the truth which alone is true. All right, so what did that mean? Now we begin. This is always true. This is the way, and it calls you home. So beloved, now we begin. This is always true. It is always now. We begin is always true. This is enlightenment. Beloved friends, we are the beloved. Any and all. I abide with you. Simply believe yourself to be. There is nowhere anyone can be where we are not. You can't separate yourself. You can try, you can believe it, but you can't actually do it. I've tried. I come for you. I come to love you. Choose from the depth within your own being to set aside every illusion you have ever given credence to. Remember the truth which alone is true. We are together, we are one. Isn't that nice? All right, back to the official reading. For indeed, in that hour there is a transcendence of all that knows limitation. There is a transcendence of all that knows coming and going, birth and death. There is but the mind of Christ within which each of us, as a spark of divine light, as a sunbeam to the sun, rests eternally in perfect communion and communication always. All right, what did that paragraph say? Indeed, there is a transcendence of all that knows limitation. That's enlightenment. That's accepting the atonement for yourself. There's a transcendence of small self, of ego. Transcendence of all that knows coming and going, birth and death. But the mind, and there is nothing else, of Christ within which each of us, a spark, divine light, a sunbeam unto the sun, this rests eternally in perfect communion and communication always. In time, this is a spark. But what is a spark in eternity but the light itself? The great secret is this is the state of your reality. In each and every moment you abide in perfect communion with the whole of creation, since all things are but temporary modifications of the one fundamental energy that I have chosen to call the Christ mind, the offspring of the Father. Most of this is actually underlined. It reads really well. The great secret is this is the state of your reality, Christ, or Christ consciousness, if you will. Each and every moment you abide in perfect communion with the whole of creation as Christ. All things are but temporary time, modifications of the one fundamental energy, which is God. Christ mind is the offspring of the Father, God's only creation. Beloved friends, I come to where you choose to be. And if you would choose to open that place within the heart and within the mind in which you can communicate with me directly, I will meet with you there as well. All right. Beloved friends, choose to be. Choose to open that place within the heart and within the mind. Choose to be. Where else could I be but where you are? This is the reality that you choose to look upon. Choose to open that place within the heart and within the mind. Communicate with me directly. I don't think it can be plainly, couldn't be said plainer. Just simply choose to communicate with oneness directly. That's how you do it. You choose. Communicate with me directly. I will meet you there. That is Christ. What is important then, by way of beginning, is to consider this simple fact. Your experience is always the effect of where you choose to focus the attention of your consciousness, itself being unlimited forever, embracing all the many dimensions of creation. You abide in that which embraces all things, in all ways, and at all times. In truth, you do not know separation, birth or death, gain or loss. Now we begin, is what it's saying. This is the beginning. This is where you begin, and this is where you start once you decide. Experience is always the reality you choose to look upon, right? It's always the effect of your focus. Consciousness, which is your will, it's yours, is unlimited forever, embracing all creation, all dimensions of what is creation. Abide in that which embraces all things, all ways, all times. Christ. Truth. You do not know separation, birth or death, gain or loss. To know something is permanent and it's timeless. That's your true reality. That's your Christed consciousness, your unified consciousness, a unified self. As you focus your attention on reading these words, recognize how you as an infinite being have deliberately chosen to participate in a form of experience. You will read words that carry certain meanings for each of you, and you each will color that meaning according to the perceptions that you have chosen to place value upon. Okay, now we're going to read it present tense. There's 3 ways to read this, by the way. There's first, second, and third person, but third person's kind of like omniscient. So keep focusing on that. So we'll read it kind of that third omniscientness. So you read it yourself to yourself, consciousness speaking to consciousness about consciousness. Focus your attention on reading these words, which is now. It's the only time there is. Recognize you, infinite, or you wouldn't be experiencing it. Infinite being, and you have deliberately chosen to participate. Participate in what? This experience. Will, which is what you are, will these words to carry meaning. Color that meaning according to perceptions you have chosen. You can read it separately, or you can read it as Christ. Either way, it's all up to you. Does this mean that some are ahead and some are behind? It only seems that way. In reality, each of you is equal. Each of you chooses from your infinite freedom to attract to yourself certain vibrational frequencies, certain forms or qualities of experience. That freedom is what you abide in always, from before the foundations of this world and long after this world ceases to be. Some are ahead, some are behind. It only seems that way. In reality, each is equal. Christ is equal. All those inside of this Christ consciousness, this whole spirit, Each soul is equal, an equal part of a whole spirit, which is God's only creation. And it's all you. Each chooses from infinite freedom to attract to yourself certain vibrational frequencies, even though it's seemingly as separate aspects of this Christ. Certain. Be certain. Certain experiences. So certainty is what experiences. That freedom is what you abide in always. No one can take that from you. Before the foundations of this world and after this world, you have the power to perceive yourself as fragmented, holographic selves for the purpose of viewing yourself. In each and every moment, you cannot be a victim of what you see, and nothing is outside of you. What you experience, you have directly and deliberately called to yourself. If you hold the thought, I do not like what I have called to myself, that is perfectly fine. For you have called to yourself the experience of being in judgment of yourself. Merely look with the wonder of a child and see what it feels like, and ask yourself, is this an energy I wish to continue in, or would I choose something else? Most of this seems pretty self-evident. Every moment, now, you cannot be a victim of what you see. Nothing is outside of you. This is the self. Experience, which is willed, directly and deliberately to yourself. Merely look with wonder, child. See what it feels like and ask yourself, is this an energy I wish to continue in, or would I choose something else? Now. It is always now. If you want to experience oneness, just choose to. For ultimately, when all possible choices within the dream of separation have been made, have been tasted, have been felt, and have been known, finally there emerges the still, quiet voice of spirit that speaks through the soul, whispering of the one truth, the one reality, the one love, the one peace, and the one bliss that is continual. All possible choices have been made, have been tasted, have been felt, have been known. That is my experience. The still, quiet voice of spirit speaks. This is the soul, whispering truth, reality, love, peace, the one bliss that is continual. Your Christ mind calling you back to remember it is now. Then the soul begins to turn from the things of this created world. It begins to withdraw its attention from its attachments to all the things it has called to itself. It begins to transcend its sense of identification with the vibrational frequencies it had only meant to play with, and then took seriously. It is seriousness within the mind that is the creation of ego, and it is great seriousness that holds the vibrations of what you would no longer choose to experience within the field of your being, within the field of your soul. So choose again. Will. Turn from the things of the created world. Withdraw attention from attachments to all the things called to yourself. Transcend identification with vibrational frequencies only meant to play with, and took seriously. It's kind of like, oops, too serious. Choose again. Seriousness is ego. It's not really real. Seriousness holds vibrations you would no longer choose to experience. The field of your being and your soul is available to you. Choose again. As you as the soul, the individual divine spark, begin to choose to withdraw the attention and the value you have placed upon all things, as you learn to simplify the nature of your own consciousness, as you realize that you can surrender into something that seems beyond you, and that you can entertain the insane thought of trusting the invisible, you can come more and more to be less and less. All right. You, the soul, the individual divine spark, this temporal holographic of light, choose, will, to withdraw the attention and the value placed upon all things. You don't need them to exist, they need you to exist. You were always subject to, and now the world is subject to you by your beingness. Simplify your consciousness, realize, which means to make real for you, for yourself, and begin simply by surrender into something that seems beyond you, which is God or Christ. Entertain the insane, which is trusting the invisible. Come more and more to be less and less, and you become more and more. Choose something else, because now we begin. Now it is always now. As you become less and less of what you thought you were, conversely, you become more and more of what your Father created you to be. The thought of perfect love and form. A channel, a simple vehicle through which the love of Spirit can shine forth. Your only task becomes the cleaning of your windows, the polishing of your floors, and the weeding of your garden, so that the light can pour forth unimpeded. So become less and less. You become more and more of what your Father created you to be. The thought of perfect love and form, Christ. A channel, a vehicle, the love of Spirit. Just shine forth what you already are. This is your task. Clean those windows, which is your perception. What you make of what you see is your perception, is what you would learn by your choice. The polishing of your floors, the weeding of your garden. The metaphors of clean up what you bring to the present with you. Don't bring anything with you. You don't have to. So that light can pour forth unimpeded. Remove the blocks to love's awareness. No longer will you find the need to defend perceptions you had identified within error. You will indeed know when you have come to that state of awakening. For you will be able to look upon all created things that you have ever experienced, all reactions you have ever held within the mind, all perceptions, all judgments, all desires that you have ever held for anyone or anything. And as they arise in your mind, they will not disturb your peace. Will, which means to choose. Perceptions, which is your thoughts. This is I. Will indeed to know that state of awakening. Will to look upon all created things, experienced, all reactions held within the mind, perceptions, judgments, desires you ever held for anyone or anything. In your mind, they will not disturb your peace. They will only add to your peace. Just see clearly. They were only thoughts in your mind. The thought of perfect love and form is now thought. Thought is all there is, and thought can have thoughts, or it would be limited. And you will smile. You will see that within your consciousness, have arisen all saintliness and all devilishness. You have been both saint and sinner, and your happiness and your unhappiness have been merely an effect of where you choose to place your attention. And you will, or choose, smile. And you will see, which means to think correctly and conclude with certainty, your consciousness. All saintliness, all devilishness, saint and sinner, there is no one else. This goes for everybody. Every single one. Happiness, unhappiness, merely an effect of where you choose to place your attention. This is your will. Indeed, beloved friends, I come forth to meet you wherever you are because I have chosen to use the infinite power of consciousness given me of the Father, as equally as it is given unto you, to discover how deep delight can be when the mind is focused only on seeing from and seeing only the mind of Christ. I have therefore called to myself all multitude of experiences, even when I walked upon your beloved earth as a man, to challenge myself, to test myself, to condition myself to rise above, to transcend all possible experiences that could distract me from the remembrance of who I am. So the holographic us, this Christ. Indeed, beloved friends, that's what we are. I come forth to meet you wherever you are. I have chosen with my will, which is infinite power, consciousness, given me of the Father, equally as it is given unto you. Discover deep delight. You can do this by being focused only on seeing from and seeing only the mind of Christ. All multitude of experiences, which is the temporary, holographic mind, temporary being of time, temporal, right. It's in your mind, beloved. Challenge, test, condition, rise above. Transcend all possible experiences that could distract the remembrance of who I am, to test and experience my power, which is the ability to love no matter what. By the way, my crucifixion was simply the climax of my own direct choice to be challenged by the events of space and time, so that I could cultivate within myself the ability to see from and to see only the perfect purity of the mind of Christ. So, crucifixion, which is the climax of, and we all know what crucifixion is. I certainly do. Direct choice, which is the will, to be challenged, to see from and see only perfect purity, which is the mind of Christ, which is God's only creation. So to prove an experience, to prove that the unreal is unreal. The point I'm trying to make with you is that in each and every moment, what you are experiencing in the realm of your emotions and mind and the effects, to a latter degree, within the body are there because you, from your infinite freedom, have simply selected that experience to focus your attention on those experiences so that you can see what the effects are. So the point, in every moment, what you are experiencing is because you, from infinite freedom, have selected that experience. So focus your attention. See what the effects are and what you have willed. And if you don't like it, change it. The insanity does not come from having chosen to see something other than the mind of Christ. The insanity that you experience as your pain, your suffering, your seeking, and your dramas comes only from your mistaken choice to become identified with what arises in the field of your awareness. You therefore lose the sight of innocence. For all events are perfectly neutral, and you are free to see them any way you want. So, insanity does not come from having chosen or willed to see other than the mind of Christ. That would be limitation. God does not limit. Neither does Christ. Insanity you experience as pain, suffering, seeking, and dramas. It comes only from your mistaken will or choice to become identified with what arises in your awareness. Let it go. You don't need it. This is what sight's all about. Don't lose it. You are free to see, and you can see them any way you want. And so now we begin, because there is only now, is what that message means. When a child is born, and many of you who are mothers know this, you can experience a depth of joy that is unspeakable. Likewise, you can also experience fear and contraction at the thought of having to be responsible for a child. When a loved one dies and you experience grief and suffering, rest assured, it is because you have chosen to contract your attention. Then all you can see is the loss of an animated body, and thereby convince yourself that you have become separated from the loved one. You can experience grief and suffering, but because you have chosen or willed to contract or identify, all you can see is loss. All you can conclude is loss, and thereby convince yourself that you have become separated. It's not true. I speak from experience that separation is an illusion. When death occurs in your plane, in that very moment, you still have the power to choose to recognize that something has changed and to shift your attention to a different faculty that the body could never possibly contain. One in which you perceive and hear and communicate with that spark of divine light, the soul, that seems to have given up the idea of trying to keep a physical form animated. This is imperative. In fact, it is the very first step of the way of the heart. Experience, which is thought extended. So experience that separation is an illusion. This has been proven. You have the power to choose to recognize a different faculty. One which you perceive and hear and communicate properly, which is that spark of divine light, which is the soul. You have given up the idea of trying to keep a physical form animated. It's just a communication device. This is the very first step of the way of the heart. The choice, will, to choose your true self is always now. That is what the spark is. Choice, will, heart, awareness, even in time and of form of any kind. That's the end of that first piece.